Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
The Fledge. The Fledge has become a Lansing institution steeped in helping others, and whose newsletter touts the slogan, fostering genius and cultivating community. Here to discuss this amazing space and its newest initiatives is the founder, Jerry Norris. Welcome back to the show, Jerry.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, and for those fans of Michigan Reimagined, feel free to go into my archives and look for the Fledge and Jerry Norris. I think we've had you on maybe 3 times before, but the Fledge just defies easy explanation, and so I just need to be reminded again all the different things you're doing because it's so tangential, and we'll talk about all of that. So for those who don't know and haven't listened to other shows, talk a little bit about how the Fledge started, where and when and why did the Fledge begin?
Yeah, so in 2014, I sold a software company. It was operating globally, and I was kind of looking around with what I should be doing. And I had been in Dubai and helping people over there and really working on human rights around the world, and realized I had never really worked that much in Lansing or the Lansing area. So in 2014, we started virtually basically having coding clubs in the back of restaurants.
Okay.
And grew into a space in Grand Ledge in 2015. Then in 2018, we bought a 12,000 square foot church and repurposed it into an incubator, accelerator, and community center. And that's kind of the quick story.
Right on. So the where is it located? Eureka Street, right?
1300 Eureka. It's over by Sparrow, so on the east side of Lansing.
And you told a story before that I'd love to have you just quickly share. You kind of, this church was empty for a little while, right? And so once you owned it, you kind of sat out front and just kind of solicited people walking by. And that kind of started, talk about how you use that as kind of almost a discovery as to what the church needed to be used for.
I think that, a lot of people have a plan when they buy a building. I don't know why they do that.
That's pretty smart.
But we just knew we wanted to expand, and we wanted to meet the needs of the community. And the best way to do that was to meet the community. So we stood out on the porch when we were taking breaks or doing projects or just having meetings out there, and we waved at everybody. And at first, it was kind of cold. It was nobody waving back, giving us the finger every once in a while. And after a while, maybe 3 to 4 months, it was people waving back, them almost getting frustrated with us if we didn't wave back. And in that engagement, people were asking, what is this place? Is it still a church? Is it a community center? And I was like, no, it's none of those things. It's whatever we all build together. We've got a music studio now, or we have a 3D printer now, but come in and look around and tell us what you would like it to be. And it evolved from there.
So if someone walked into your space physically on Eureka Street today, can you give us a kind of a verbal description as to all the nooks and crannies and functionality of the building you've got now?
Okay, this is going to take an hour and a half for the nooks and crannies.
Right on.
No, I'm sorry. The real answer is there is a universal feeling of welcomeness and of peace and of safety. I hear that from almost every single person when they walk in. They can feel it. And you walk into the space and it is covered with art and creativity and innovation. You will see, a painting that is 13 feet by 8 feet that is on the back wall. You'll be running into 3D printers and electric bikes and Chat GPT scrolling around some screen somewhere. So it's really a great mixture of art and innovation and creativity and discovery and a lot of little surprises all over the place. You'll walk back to the old baptismal, and now it's a fish pond where we use the water to feed our plants and things like that.
So again, to get a little higher arching for those who don't know, I mean, this isn't like a membership-driven club where you kind of join or anything. This, if I'm not mistaken, anyone can just kind of roll in
Yeah.
and poke around and ask questions and get involved,
Yeah.
right?
Our number one principle is radical inclusion. And what that means to us is if I'm standing with my back to the door, somebody walks in and says, "Can I?" I am saying yes as I turn around. So I don't know who they are, so I can't impose some bias on them. I don't know what their idea is, so I'm not going to shoo them away. No, we don't do med tech here, or we don't do crypto here.
Right.
It's always yes, and the power of yes is amazing.
And then you don't just naturally fund what people want to do, if I remember correctly. You kind of empower them to try to figure out how to get there. I remember the first time I went to the Fledge, I think it was in Grand Ledge, I walked in and there was an anvil there.
Yeah.
And you said, well, someone wanted to do tinsmithing, and so or whatever it was. And so we kind of worked together and figured out a way to get the equipment, and that's now here for anyone who wants to do that discipline. Same thing with the music studio and recording sessions, right? You kind of bootstrapped all the equipment, and everyone, like many hands make light work. Obviously elaborate. This is your conversation, but is that true?
It's exactly true.
Okay.
I mean, it's always a fight for resource.
Yep.
We are not, well funded by big grants or
Right.
anything. We earn most of our money through contracts with LEAP or the Lansing Regional Smart Zone or the MEDC or some of the federal agencies. So we get very few grants. Most of our work is contractual or donations from the community. And so it is a constant bootstrapping of things, and it's a constant, being a good steward of the resources that the community is willing to give us. And so when somebody walks in, they might be asking me to do something illegal with them, like buy Bitcoin and flip Percocet or something like that. And that, yes, it has to come. I have to do that. That is my promise to the community. And it is it's so powerful when you say that to somebody, because you might be the first person that ever told them, yeah, that's okay, let's do it. But when we're in a situation like that is illegal, we never get to that point. We're going to pivot. We're going to say, hey, look, you're being entrepreneurial. You understand blockchain at some level. You understand, flipping things and selling things. Let's find that skill set that isn't going to get you shot, isn't going to put you in jail, isn't going to kill somebody else, and we go from there. But if we say no, we'll never engage with that person again. They might not ever come back. So we have to say yes.
Okay. That's fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about the Alice threshold. I see Alice's restaurant. I knew about Alice, but it was new to me about a year ago. And so, and the Maslow hierarchy of needs and your work in engaging the poor, because I think that all really is such a heck of a story. Talk about that.
Well, we started out being very focused on prosperity and entrepreneurialism, and we were an incubator, we're an accelerator. And what we discovered very quickly is that in Lansing, where so many people live under the Alice threshold, which I'll explain right now, asset limited, income constrained, and employed, we would call them the working poor, maybe people who live check to check. But in Lansing, about 60% of people live below that Alice threshold or below the poverty line.
60%.
Yes. So we walk out on the streets today, 2 out of 3 people are going to make a decision today about whether they're going to eat, whether they're going to pay rent, whether they're going to pay their electric bill, whether they're going to get their car oil changed, all the things that are basic and taken for granted by so many people. Many of us are making choices. We're not going to take our kid to daycare today. She's got to go to grandma's because we can't pay that. And then grandma's going to sit her on the couch, and, it's not going to be that early childhood education that we need.
Right.
So with Alice, what we decided was to focus on the 6 basic needs, which are housing, healthcare, childcare, technology, transportation, and food, and try to lessen the burden on all of us around here so that food is a little cheaper or housing's a little easier to obtain or whatever it is, and get that obstacle out of the way so that you can focus on who you were meant to be, what your authentic self is, what your entrepreneurial journey might be.
So how exactly do you address those things? I mean, that's 6 different facets. You mentioned, obviously earning grants and funding and stuff like that, but how do you deploy those resources to minimize that in practical sense?
I think that our food systems are probably the best, food programs. So we have a free stand that is out in our driveway, and anybody at any time can either put food in or take food out. So it says right on it, leave what you can, take what you need. And that food, giving that food out, is a beacon to people. So people come there, 24 hours a day. People will show up at midnight and drop off, 500 pounds of potatoes, or people will show up and, grab potatoes or pizza or whatever happens to be in there at the time. But everything that we do with basic needs, it doesn't stop at just that, that charity and that giving. It is a continuum of harm reduction where if I can feed you today, then maybe I can teach you to fish today too, because you've got that meal in you. You're not scraping by. You're not scrapping for whatever it is that you need to do. So maybe I can give you a potted tomato plant that you could take and put on your balcony of your apartment or whatever it is if you're housed, or take back to your camp.
Or come
unhoused.
inside. Now that you show up for the food, you come inside and maybe develop a skill that can make you some money.
Exactly.
Fascinating. So, I mean, housing.
Yes.
How have you been advocating for housing? Clearly, shelter is a big part of that hierarchy of needs.
Well, it's, when we look at housing, we look at the unhoused problem that we have, where there, are hundreds of people that are sleeping in the street or in shelters every night. We look at the weather, especially as, we go into the winter months every year, it just keeps coming back for some reason. And, people die of exposure in the city.
Yep.
And in 2022, we lost 2 community members right on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. One died of exposure, one died of carbon monoxide poisoning from sleeping in their car. And we were like, there's no shelter for people to go to. The shelters that we have are at capacity, or people are banned, or they discriminate against people and don't let them in. And so we had to open up as a warming shelter this in February of 2023. And that kind of got us in a little bit of trouble because we're not permitted to do that. But at the same time, when we had that code blue, which is the city's kind of signal that shelters have to open up, they can't ban people, there's going to try to be warming shelters, nobody died during that time, and we're pretty proud of that. But we had to go to fight to, let's get a warming center that is in the city, and we're trying to get city council and the mayor and everybody to fund that, and we're looking at another winter coming at us again. And we still don't have that. So that's kind of one part of that harm reduction continuum. But then we've also advocated and hosted Rent is Too Damn High, and we've done protests or rallies at the Capitol. We've got the House of Reps and the Senate is looking at the Homeless Bill of Rights and the Renters Bill of Rights. So we do a lot of advocacy there. But we also this week will be closing on our first house that we're doing a pretty cool social housing experiment with.
Let's talk about that in a second. But at first, I want to thank one of our sponsors when it comes to creating commercial and residential spaces. There's no one I trust more than my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. Brent Forsberg and his team take a holistic approach in creating an environment that suits your needs while creating a foundation for a prosperous community. Since the 1950s, Forsberg has been a name to trust if you're looking to partner on a project, occupy a great space to live or work, or simply follow one of the great thought leaders in our state. Reach out to my friends at Forsberg Real Estate Company by calling 517-349-9330 or check out their website at lansingrealestate.com. You will not regret it. So you bought a house.
Yes.
Where is this house located?
It's on Ray Street. It's on the south side near Cedar and Mount Hope here in Lansing. And it is, we're rescuing a landlord. And most people that I work with are going to say, forget that landlord, let him suffer. But what we saw was a fledgling we were working with that got into wanting to be a landlord, 10 years ago. Nothing ever worked out right for her. So she's got this house, she's got these fines that come, she's got a tenant who can't pay rent, mostly because of COVID, and it's just a horrible mess. And the traditional thing would be that she would sell that as quickly as she could for as much as she could. They would evict the people, and we'd start all over with the same exact cycle again. And we saw an opportunity to go in and get her out of her mortgage. So we paid off her mortgage. We then gave her shares of the house. So she still has a little bit of equity in the house. Then we have the rest of the equity that we're going to be selling those shares to community members. So there's 1,000 of them. We're selling them for $100. We're using that money to repair the house so that it comes up to code for the rental inspection that we'll have this month. And then we have a tenant who is also a fledgling who we know very well. We know they're going to be able to pay rent. They're going to be able to earn our Fledge coin, which is our community token that they can pay up to 20% of their rent with. People in the community, we have such a large, diverse set of community members that if you say, hey, who knows how to plumb, then there's somebody, I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, I'm a builder, I'm a roof specialist. And they can come together and earn bounties, so Fledge coin or different parts or shares of the house. So now we've got a whole group of people fighting for this single tenant who we're already lining up to be successful. We're going to help them in everything that they need, and we all have a stake in it. So now it's not just one landlord struggling to get by to try to do the right thing, which I'm going to assume was her first intention.
Yep.
And profit's not our motive. Our motive is safe and affordable housing. It's really, we want the community to be wealthy. And when we think about wealthy, we don't think about Elon Musk. We don't think about billionaires. We think about well-being and prosperity. And so we've got to get everybody above the basic needs so they have health care, child care, housing, and all of that. We also have to create opportunity to be prosperous, and that's where our skill development, our workforce development comes in, our entrepreneurial journeys come in. So it's kind of a top line, bottom line. Get everybody more money, but also reduce that cost of having to just survive.
Fascinating. We're up against the clock.
Yes.
And so I really would like to have you back sooner than later to continue this conversation, because I know we're just peeling the onion, right? So many things that you're doing. How can people learn more about the Fledge?
Well, we've got the website, thefledge.com, and everything can start there. So you can find our Facebook, our TikTok, our Twitter, our Threads, all the social medias. You can always email me directly, jerry@thefledge.com. And yeah,
I can't express enough how much gratitude this community should have because of your vision and your work every day. So thank you so much, Jerry Norris, the founder of the Fledge here in Lansing. Go take a look and support any way you can. Thanks for joining me today, Jerry.
Thank you. And thank you to the community.